Welcome, 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 everybody. It is Sunday, July 19th, 2026, noon p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, or whatever time it happens to be where you are because you are watching us right now. It is time for Master's Mind. And of course, it's Sunday, which means that we are at the weekend of the previous week and starting of the new week. And Terry, I loved what you shared earlier when it came to the vibe of the day, and to me, I think it's a great way to start our master's mind. So, if you'll indulge me, everyone, I just want to, if you haven't read it, I will read it because I think it's worth it today. The vibe of the day that Terry shared with us is whatever didn't work out this week, let it go. It's Sunday. Offer yourself the best of what you need to rest and reset, and set your intention to be the highest version of yourself for the week to come. The upcoming week is going to be magical.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Awesome, Terry, man.
I
Imagine
agree.
the amount of thought she puts into those is just amazing.
Huge.
Out freaking standing.
Right? You're
Exactly.
welcome,
I,
everybody.
I think that's actually, Terry, I'm going to say, and I think, I don't know if everybody will agree, but that is one of the best vibes of the day I've seen in a long time. And there have been a lot of them. You've been very consistent with those.
Thank you.
So that to me is, yeah,
Go,
right there.
golfer clap for Terry.
Jazz
I don't,
hands.
darn it, I don't have my sound effects with the clap on it available. Anyways, all right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, it is Sunday, as Terry's vibe of the day said. So let's get her done. Let's welcome our mentors in chief, our GPSs to successes, and our dear friends, most importantly. Ladies and gentlemen, Terry and Robert Hollis.
Well, thank you so much, Craig, the hostess with the mostest. I love and appreciate you, and thank you so much. Hello, amazing and awesome Unlimited Wisdom family, and also members here. So, hi, Sarah, Dustin, Deborah Bronner, Matthew. I always have to say Hannah and Ezra, Mary, Daniel, Melody, Sandy, Mary. Lisa, let me see here. I thought I see. Oh, Michael and Angela, Lisa Marie, Coach Bob, and of course, Terry, my lovely wife. So glad to have her here. And so on today's mastermind subject that I want to really jump into a little bit because it seems to be somewhat the simplest, but yet the most unreachable because people just don't have it on their mind. But that word is peace. You know what I mean? So, how many of you, if you could be at 100% total peace in your mind, how many people think that that would be a nice place to come from? And so, a lot of people, especially when everything else is crazy out there, it is amazing how much everything is focused on making sure that we're not. And I'm sorry to bore you, Sandy. It's like, but there's just not any peace out there whatsoever. And so I sort of heard a cool story I'd like to share with you guys, but it's about a guy that he constantly was taking medical equipment and food and taking it down to some of the inside villages in the Amazon jungle. And he was flying, and all of a sudden, really bad weather kicked in. And of course, his motor died, and he ended up crashing his plane in the middle of the Amazon jungle. And he, of course, survived. And now he's there, and he's just like, oh my God, how are people going to find me? Thanks for jumping on, David, and also Arlene. Great to have you on here. And one of the things was, as soon as he crashed his plane, what's so funny?
I was just watching Coach Bob.
Okay, yeah, he's dude can be distracting, man. It's like and all of a sudden he's there, and all of a sudden a lot of people now when you get challenged, that's when you start to really realize whether or not you got a relationship with this higher power, right? So all of a sudden, it starts raining really super hard. And in his mind, he's going, with it raining so hard, I wish it would stop raining. I can't make a fire, and it just is so cold. You know what I mean? And so my whole thing is, this whole thing was just like, wow, and he just kept praying. And then all of a sudden it was a week, then it was another week, and all of a sudden 2 weeks out in the jungle believing he's going to die, and he just continues to pray and the rain won't stop. It just keeps getting heavier and heavier. Then he gets to a place, and we all hear this, where when we're trying to come up with every idea, he's thinking that he's going to die from, being too cold. He doesn't have a fire. He doesn't have anything to eat. So, everything is just really, really, really awful. And then what he does is he finally just sort of surrenders. And he just says, I guess if this is the way I'm going to die, then this is the way I'm going to die. And as soon as he said that, he immediately came up and felt peace, but he immediately decided, wow, I'm going to run through my mind all the memories that I've had and how grateful I am to have these memories. And all of this stuff, he started playing this old movie in his head about everything that he was grateful for, that the life that he really, served. And it was neat that he was able to have a company, and it became very successful very fast, and someone bought it. And that's when he decided he always wanted to be a pilot. So then he became a pilot, and then he decided to buy a plane. And then he wanted to spend the rest of his life just taking food and medical supplies to people that couldn't afford them, but also people that couldn't get them. He just wanted to focus on something that would make him feel full of joy and make him feel fulfilled. And all of a sudden he realized that, his life was pretty awesome. So he sort of like just gave up and surrendered and just went, this is going to be it. And after a couple of weeks, all of a sudden the rain stopped. And soon as the rain stopped, he wasn't even there an extra day. And all of a sudden he heard some voices, and he's like in the middle of the Amazon jungle. And he knew when he crashed his plane. And so he went toward the voices and started yelling. And then he meets this whole tribe of people. And he's like, wow, I didn't think anybody was here. This is so deep in the jungle. And they go, yeah, we've never been here to gather food and stuff because it was too deep in the jungle. But it's never rained this hard for 2 weeks in a row. So it raised the water table, and it allowed us to take our boats to come to this part of the jungle. So I thought it was such a great story, because as soon as he crashes, he's praying for the rain to stop. And I know there's numerous stories about, this whole concept. So, the first thing I would do, hi, Shelly, thanks for jumping on here, is the first thing that I would ask each and every one of you to do, like almost always, is write down your definition, your meaning of peace. And then in your mind, sort of think, okay, if this is what I would love in my life, how many of you can think of some things that you would need to do to be able to find moments of peace? Right? So now think about it a little bit, or feel it a little bit. It's like, what could you do to actually get peace in your life? Well, first thing you would have to do is you definitely would have to believe that it's achievable. Right? So we do know people like, the first thought that came to my mind was Nelson Mandela. you hear about people like this that, wow, they get thrown in jail just because they're in politics. And now all of a sudden it looks like they're going to spend the rest of their life there. And we always hear these stories about prisoners of war. You know what I mean? And everybody else dies. And then, when they finally get rescued, they ask the person that's, that seems to be the most okay mentally. And he just said, well, they go, what did you do? And he goes, I kept thinking every day what I was going to do when I get out of here. That he didn't think about the current situation of being beat and starved and the conditions and all of this stuff. It's always a mental thought. And I thought, sometimes when you're looking at peace in your life, what is the opposite of peace? And you start thinking about, the chaos, all the stuff. Perfect, Lisa Marie. Chaos. There's all this stuff that seems to be out of our control. I thought we talked about this on a video. Me and my wife laugh sometimes because it is pretty crazy how the weather, so you look at the weather and here there's a lot of crazy weather going on. And we'll make funny comments like you'll get to 111 or 116 here, but it's not a big deal until it gets east. So the weather hits us and crickets, but as soon as it starts to get into Minneapolis, Chicago, now it's a big deal. And it's like, it's like only 100 here when they finally start talking about it. But one of the things is really, really hot weather. A lot of people may or may not know this, but water turns into steam and steam turns into moisture. And when it gets heavy in the clouds, now you got another thunderstorm. So it's just this circulation, right? And what's crazy is how many times now we got these thunderstorms. And as soon as you get a thunderstorm, it's like you look on the radar and you're like, hey, it's coming right over us. And then it doesn't. And then you look and the wind either blew it to the left or the right. You know what I mean? North or south or east or west. And it just missed you. Then how many of you know that you look on the radar and it's like, hey, everything's going to be great. And then all of a sudden the thunderstorm's right on top of you. like it appeared right then, And so I've always giggled my whole life how much people will tell you what their mood is totally based on the weather. And you look at a person that's a weather person and they're wrong a majority of the time. I don't know too many people that are really good at weather predictions unless you live in like Southern California. I remember when Terry and I first moved out there and they go, guess what? This week's weather is 75 and sunny. But yet there's some other chaos there. Hi, Deborah Grady. Hi, Corky. And so my deal I wanted to share with you guys today is some of the things that you can do to sort of mentally in your mind try to find pockets of peace. Of course, one of the biggest ones is gratefulness. You know what I mean? To actually take the time to, when you get up in the morning, to just be thankful for something, be grateful for something. Another part of it is also just realizing that again, chaos usually comes around us trying to control things that are out of our control. Right? So you look at a lot of things in life and a lot of stuff, virtually all of it, is stuff that's not in our control, like including the weather. And so when we constantly are looking at things happening in the world, politics, all of this stuff, is pretty interesting, master's mind that, people don't realize this, but there's actually scriptures in the Bible that says you're not supposed to think about the government. Isn't that crazy? You're supposed to take all your worries and everything that's bothering you and just cast it over. It's like you have no control over it anyway, right? And so I had a funny thought this morning, though, because you guys know Terry and I watch Sunday morning, right? And we constantly always hear about the rating, of the administration or the president, right? But even if it's the lowest, it's sure not as low as the Congress. Isn't that crazy? You got Congress right now that's got a 14% approval rate, and they're telling everybody how bad everything else is. And so the whole program, they had a whole episode just that, you know, the people that are hired to serve the people of this country, now it's all about how much money they can get and how selfish they can be, constantly causing division and chaos to get, little moments on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram to raise more money. And but of course, if you talk to any of them, what are they going to tell you? They're going to tell you that it's the other side's fault, right? They don't have to do anything because the other side is the problem. It's like they're constantly blaming. No one wants to take personal responsibility. So again, if you get caught up in watching the TV or doom scrolling or just doing constant things that are throwing ideas into your mind, then I don't think that you would be in peace with that. How many of you guys realize that, right? Another part of peace is just really, really, again, we talk about this a lot, is to stop beating yourself up. Stop thinking that you're not enough. So a lot of us are constantly in chaos because we don't even know how to forgive ourselves. We don't know how to love ourselves. We don't know how to look at ourselves and go and listen, this is who I am, and I'm okay with this. This is how I do things. I'm not supposed to be in compare-itis, trying to compare myself with everyone, right? So each and every day, just really, really have a consciousness that the only way that you can be in peace in life is if you're really, truly in love with who you are. In love with who you are, in love with all your flaws, your mistakes, but just understanding that this is who I am and this is what I got to work with. And I'm happy with it. I'm proud about it. And so, ask yourself, the last thing I'll share with you is, again, you're always going to find me trying to get you guys to constantly look at the influence or the power that you have and ask yourself, what can you change? You know what I mean? And usually the only thing that you need to change to get more peace in your life is just your attitude, just your heart space, just your mindset. So those are things that you can control. And you really, really got to think about it. You really got to be able to put yourself in a situation where you understand how to put yourself in peace. There's a lot of stuff that talks about, I know you guys have heard this, but when it talks about being afraid, we got a lot of words for that, right? Is anxiety. You know what I mean? Again, being afraid. But in 365 times, it's this constant thing where there's scriptures in the Bible that talk about be not afraid. Do not have a spirit of fear. That is supposed to be love, joy, and what? Peace. So those are the three words that are constantly, hey, be in good cheer. Have love for others. And then also have peace of mind. So I just wanted to throw that out there because when I was looking at a lot of stuff that, a few Sundays ago, and I'm going to continue to dive into this, I'm really, really, really moving forward is I used to say this to people all the time, and I don't know if I've ever shared this with you guys. I'm very analytical. And so what I would always ask myself, what is something that I could be above average at? That if I learn to be above average at this one thing and try to ask myself the one thing that made the biggest difference. So just really quickly, when I got involved in racing cars, the number one thing that everyone complained about is their traction. They just couldn't get enough traction, which simply means is the ability to get the tire to meet the road, but to get the most traction, not to have the tire slip, right? And so when everyone seemed to be struggling with traction, every time I went to a racetrack, that's the first thing that I would do to help a driver. Is I knew things to immediately do to get them more traction. So if their car steered better and the horsepower got to the track, we would kick everyone's ass. So this is one thing that I knew I was unique and different. So the first time that I went to this racetrack, I would ask this guy, and he had like the biggest piece of crap car. And I went over to him and I said, hey, is there anything I can do? And he goes, are you kidding me? I can't afford to pay you. And I said, I didn't ask you to pay me. And I said, the track is Sturgis track. Terry's been to it many, many, many times. And what I did is I went in there and I said, so everyone's focused. It seems like everyone's really, really focused on qualifying. I said, if everyone's just following each other around in a single file, because everyone set their car up to run on the inside, what if we set your car up to run on the outside of the track? And I said, so then when you qualify, you're going to qualify really, really, really bad because you don't want to show people what we're doing. But in a 30-lap feature, if there's 10 cars, we got 30 laps to pass cars on the outside. And we started doing this, and he became the track champion. And it was like he would pull out, get one car, pull in, go down, get another one. And we didn't get him on the straights because they had bigger horsepower. So the more money that people had, the more horsepower they had, so they would always take off and leave us on the straightaways. But we made it so the car could run on the outside of the turns, and he would get the car back. And so then the car would almost get halfway there, and then the next time they would have to pull in. So in 30 laps, we would be able to pass every car, and he would win. So think in your life, what is one thing? I see Lisa Marie. I know she's been around race cars and stock cars. But one of the things is the whole concept of what, and everything that you're doing right now, everything that you're doing, what is one thing that you could get gooder at that would make the biggest difference? So, if you don't know what that thing is, right? And so when I got involved in marketing, you guys will crack up because this is what I figured out, is I knew the number one thing that everyone needs when they're creating everything. Doesn't make a difference what you're creating. What is something that everyone needs? People. And the number one thing that everyone was scared about is people. And so I thought, what if I got really good at connecting with people? What if I made it a priority that when I met someone, and then of course that turned to online, right? But what could I say or do to really, really be really great at connecting with someone as fast as humanly possible? Because I heard this thing all the time and I started saying it, that if people know, like, and trust you, then they'll do business with you. Then they'll purchase from you. So what could you do to get them to know, like, and trust you? And what if you were just that person that instead of being scared of that, because how many people have heard what the number one fear in the world is, even before dying, is talking in front of a group of people. people talking in front of a group of people, being in school where someone says, do you know the answer? And you won't raise your hand. Does anybody know of anyone that when the teacher told them, hey, answer the question, and then you got really good at just positioning yourself behind someone else? It's like, leave me out of this.
My mom
right?
made me come today.
So if that's the number one fear, what if you could get to the place where it wasn't? That you could have such a peace about you and such a love and joy about you. I don't know, for some of you that know people that are really super analytical, there's a group of people out there, and this is such a hilarious story. But there was this guy, his name was James Hugh, and he was Korean. And I seen him in front of a room, and he did this laugh. He would start doing his presentation, and then all of a sudden he would go, you know, and he started doing this, and then, I watched him, and then I went up to him afterwards, and I said, what businesses were you in before? And he said, ACN. And I said, oh, really? And I go, is that really your laugh? And he goes, no, you laugh to disarm people. And I go, so you're purposely putting that laugh into places to disarm people? And he goes, yeah. And I said, why would someone say to do that? And he goes, that's funny. And I go, what do you mean it's funny? Well, the people that, built ACN said that that's what you do to disarm people. So the analytical people looked at me and didn't realize that my laugh is real. So they were being unauthentic, laughing while doing a presentation because I was successful and I laugh and I have a very unique laugh, so they needed to have a unique laugh. I never even thought about it. Melody and Craig knows who I'm talking about. And so I was like, wow. So there's things that you can do, a sincere compliment, you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that you can do to build this connection and also get good at listening, less at interruptions, right? Asking them questions about themselves. And when you're doing it correctly, instead of being scared to talk to people, you'll build a connection so fast that you'll get at peace. And when you're at peace, now all of a sudden, you get to be authentic and you get to be genuine. Because you're not thinking with the wrong part of your brain, and you're not thinking, what do I need to say to get this person to buy something? The number one thing in all the years of doing this, people would always go, yeah, I know you give away gifts, and there's the law of reciprocities, and you're getting people to know, like, and trust you. But damn it, when do I get money out of them? Isn't that hilarious? They go, well, when do I change it into a link? And when do I, get them to get in the business? And when do I get them to buy something? And I'm going like, when I just said that to you guys, does that sound like peace? No, that sounds like an agenda. That sounds like chaos. That sounds like, manipulation. It's like, listen, I want to know the closing technique. You know what I mean? And so it's very, very, very interesting that if you can find these places of peace purposely, with intent, get yourself in peace, then all of a sudden you're going to realize that can you guys imagine being at peace, love, and joy as a default? What if peace, love, and joy was a default personality of you? To actually hear somebody say, oh, I love being around you. And they say your name. And they go, why? And it's like, well, it just seems peaceful. They're always telling jokes, so they're always doing stuff to make me laugh. They seem like they're at peace. And then to end this, how many of you know people that when you see them in a room or you see them on caller ID, all of a sudden your level of stress just goes, what? It's like, this is not going to be a fun. You know what I mean? Because this person is just, and just drama. Yeah. So, you watch shows and all of a sudden this one person shows up and it's like the chaos and the drama is frickin' on, right? And I always told Terry, I go, the people that create reality shows, the people that don't get enough credit is the casting. You're looking at a Big Brother or a Survivor or any of these shows, right? Terry and I were, for a while was watching this, was it Outlast?
I think so.
Yeah, it was a movie called Outlast. It makes Survivor look like easy. I mean, they're out in the middle of Alaska. I mean, super cold weather, no fire, no food, no nothing, man. And but the casting people are really, really good because they're sitting around as they're casting these people and they're going, this person's going to flip their shit. This person, and there's people like I remember Terry and I watched it and it wasn't even like the second episode. And one of the people in the other groups, I think they had like 4 groups, and they go, well, they won the fire, the fire sticks, you know what I mean, to create fire. So we should just go over there and take it away from them. And I'm going like, what are the rules of this? Because if I had a way to create fire and you're going to come over and try to take it away, this is called assault. It's like, so I'm sure there are some policies and procedures and rules that you're like not allowed to do that. But again, the opposite of that is finding peace. Then you see these people that, they're very, very quiet. They're unconfrontational, but I don't think they're living in peace because they're allowing the people that are doing drama and chaos to cause a lot of problems around them, right? So how do you find inner peace? So I love and appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful day. So thanks very much for Scott, Faith, Corky Santa, Shelly, David, Sarah, Dustin, Matthew, Hannah, Ezra, Mary, Daniel, Melody, Deborah Bronner, Deborah Grady, Lisa Marie, Erlene, Sandy Baker, Michael, Angela, Coach Bob. Holy cow. Got a great group on here. 20 people. And of course, my lovely wife, Terry, and the hostess with the mostest, Craig Jackman. So find peace, find peace, find peace.